The underground storage level of the Federal Digital Forensics Archive was never completely silent. Even at night, cooling systems kept running. Air moved continuously through the ventilation grills, old servers hummed behind concrete walls, and fluorescent lights crackled softly above rows of metal shelves. Daniel Carter had grown used to those sounds. They were honest. A fan hummed because it was spinning. A hard drive clicked because its read head was searching for a damaged sector. An alarm beeped because somebody had forgotten to close a door. Every sound had a cause. That was why Daniel immediately noticed the quiet tapping coming from the box on his desk. Tap, pause, tap. He looked away from his monitor. It was 1:43 in the morning. The night shift had ended nearly 2 hours earlier, but Daniel had stayed to finish cataloging evidence from a closed case in Ohio. The box had arrived without a chain of custody form. There was only a white label on the gray cardboard. Asterisk case #14 asterisk below it someone had written by hand. Asterisk RED room protocol asterisk Daniel had already checked the internal database. No such case existed. Tap. The sound came again. Daniel slowly stood. He did not believe in ghosts, curses, or possessed machines. Nearly every frightening story about an old computer eventually turned out to involve a damaged power supply, a swollen capacitor, or a rodent inside the case. He put on anti-static gloves and opened the box. Inside lay an old 3.5-inch hard drive. Its casing was scratched, its screws rusted, and its manufacturer's label had turned yellow with age. There was no serial number or production date, only a red circle drawn in marker. Daniel lifted the drive. The tapping stopped, of course. He muttered, otherwise. This would be too easy. He placed the drive inside a protective container and called the archive director. Eleanor Brooks answered after the fourth ring. Carter. Unless the building is on fire, I am dismissing you until morning. We have an unidentified storage device with no transfer log. The silence on the other end lasted slightly too long. What number? 14. Eleanor stopped breathing. Daniel could hear it through the phone. Do not connect it, she said. I wasn't planning to. Do not stay alone with it either. Eleanor, that is not a request. Lock the laboratory. Go to my office and wait for me. Yuri, not in the building. I am on my way. She ended the call. Daniel stared at his phone for several seconds. In 6 years of working for Eleanor Brooks, he had never heard fear in her voice. Irritation. Often exhaustion, almost daily fear. Never. He left the container inside the isolation lab, locked the door and checked it twice. As he stepped away, something tapped from inside. Tap, tap, tap. This time it did not sound mechanical. It sounded like fingers knocking against glass. Eleanor arrived 27 minutes later. She entered her office in a dark coat, her hair wet from the rain and an old leather folder under one arm. Without greeting Daniel, she closed the door, lowered the blinds, and placed the folder on her desk. Where is the drive? In the isolation lab. You didn't power it on. No. Scan it. No. Photograph the label with your phone. I know the protocol for potentially contaminated media. Eleanor looked at him. That protocol will not protect you. Daniel sat across from her. Then tell me what will. She opened the folder. Inside were printed photographs of 3 people. The first showed a man in his 40s wearing a computer technician's uniform. The second was a young woman with short blonde hair. The third was an elderly professor with round glasses. Owen Mercer, Eleanor said, touching the first photograph. Disappeared in Pittsburgh in 2018. Her finger moved to the second. Claire Bennett, disappeared in Seattle in 2021. Then the third, Dr. Samuel Reed, a specialist in digital archaeology, disappeared 9 months ago. What connected them? Old hard drives. Eleanor removed 3 more photographs. Each showed a different storage device. One from a desktop computer, one from a laptop, and one external drive in a damaged plastic case. Each had a red circle drawn on it. Only one file was found on every drive. She continued, no name and no extension. The duration varied, so did the content. Home videos, street recordings, empty rooms, but the final 7 seconds were always the same. Daniel already knew the answer. A red window. Eleanor nodded. Not a computer window, a real window in a red wall. It appears at the end of the recording even if it was not present in the original location. Then the owner of the computer disappears. After watching it, the owner did not always watch it. Sometimes a technician, investigator, or relative opened the file. But the person who owned the computer was the one who vanished. How long afterward? Between 7 hours and 7 days. Daniel studied the photographs. Why isn't the case registered? Because it was closed before it was created. She removed one last page. It showed a much younger Eleanor standing inside a laboratory with 3 unfamiliar people. One of them was holding a drive marked with a red circle. In 2012, we received the first device. Eleanor said, I was a junior analyst. We watched the recording. Who disappeared? She looked at the man standing beside her in the photograph, everyone except me. Part 2, the final 7 seconds by morning. The isolation laboratory had been disconnected from the internal network, cellular signals, and wireless data systems. Daniel insisted on examining a forensic copy rather than the original drive. Eleanor agreed only after he proposed a fully mechanical imaging process with one-way data transmission. They treated the device as if it contained advanced cyberwarfare malware. Daniel suspected they were both afraid of something simpler. Opening an ordinary video file and discovering there was no technical explanation, the drive started on the third attempt. It contained a single file, no name, no extension, no creation date, size 713 megabytes, 713. Eleanor said, does that mean something? The other drives had different file sizes, but the sum of the digits always equaled 11. This one does too. I know. Daniel examined the file header. The container resembled an obsolete Japanese surveillance format, but its structure was malformed. Sections of data repeated as if someone had recorded the same fragment over itself many times. A normal player cannot open this, Daniel said. We learned that already. What did you use in 2012? A program written by one of our analysts. The analyst who disappeared, yes, Daniel leaned back. You hid the code for 12 years, I destroyed it. Considering the drive downstairs. That did not solve the problem. Eleanor said nothing. Daniel wrote his own decoder, rather than playing the file in real time. The software would separate it into individual frames and save them as static images. That way we are not watching the recording, he explained. We are examining a sequence, you are looking for a loophole in rules you do not understand. That is often how people survive. Processing took 40 minutes. The screen displayed 109 frames. The first images showed a small apartment. A camera had been placed on a shelf in the living room. Evening light faded outside the window. A man in a t-shirt moved between the kitchen and sofa, occasionally speaking to someone beyond the frame. Do you recognize him? Daniel asked. Eleanor shook her head. Facial recognition produced a match. Kenji Watanabe, a Japanese citizen living in Boston. He had disappeared 3 weeks earlier. Police believed he had voluntarily left the country. So this was his drive, Daniel said, or he was its most recent owner. They examined the frames in groups of 20 rather than as continuous footage. The apartment remained empty through most of the recording. Occasionally, Kenji crossed in front of the camera. Once, he stopped, turned his head and stared directly into the lens. Magnify it, Eleanor said. Daniel enlarged the frame. Kenji looked exhausted. Dark circles marked his eyes, his lips were parted. He is saying something. Daniel isolated the audio track. Most of it consisted of noise, but this point contained a short vocal fragment. He reversed it, slowed it down, and removed the interference. Kenji whispered in Japanese, "She already knows my name." Daniel looked at Eleanor. Who is she? Continue. 7 seconds before the recording ended, the apartment changed, not gradually. One frame showed an ordinary white wall. The next showed a dark red wall. A narrow wooden window stood in its center. Beyond the glass was nothing but blackness. Daniel advanced another frame. A little girl stood in the darkness beyond the window. Her back was turned. In the next frame, she was closer. Then her hands were pressed against the glass. The final frame showed only her face. Daniel did not have time to study her features. The monitor went black. The laboratory lights failed. Do not move. Eleanor said, emergency outage. No. Something knocked against the laboratory's observation window. Tap, tap, tap. Daniel switched on his flashlight. No one stood beyond the glass. When the backup lights came on, they saw a child's handprint on the inside surface of the window. Below it, Japanese characters had been written. Asterisk, give me back my room. Asterisk, they did not destroy the drive. Eleanor wanted to degauss it immediately, but Daniel objected. Were the previous devices destroyed? 2 were burned, 1 was melted in an industrial furnace, and the recordings returned. Yes, then the drive is not the source, it is only a carrier. Daniel reopened the extracted frames. Avoiding the final 7 seconds, a photograph hung on the wall of Kenji's apartment. Daniel enlarged it. Kenji stood beside an old Japanese house with an elderly woman. Behind them was a red wall, possibly his family home. Daniel said, immigration records showed that Kenji had been born in Matsu, Shimane Prefecture. His mother, Eiko Watanabe, still lived there. Daniel called her through an interpreter when he mentioned Kenji's name. The woman remained silent for a long time, then she asked, did you find his computer? Daniel and Eleanor exchanged a look. Yes, he said. Eiko began to cry quietly. Then she will come for the house soon. Who? The girl from the room. What room? The woman did not answer immediately. The one our family sealed inside the wall. The house without a window. 3 days later, Daniel and Eleanor arrived in Japan. Officially, they were conducting an international consultation concerning Kenji Watanabe's disappearance. Unofficially, Eleanor used old contacts to transport the drive inside a secure container without listing it among their luggage. Matsu greeted them with low clouds and cold, persistent rain. The Watanabe family home stood on the edge of the city near an overgrown hill. It was old but well-maintained, with dark timber walls, a tiled roof, and a narrow garden lined with stone lanterns. Only the rear wall looked unusual. It had been painted red. Eiko Watanabe was a small woman with silver hair. She welcomed them inside, asked them to remove their shoes, and led them to a tatami room. 3 cups of tea were already waiting on a low table. Kenji said he felt safe in America. She explained through an interpreter provided by the local police. He believed the ocean was wide enough. What was he running from? Eleanor asked. Eiko looked toward the red wall beyond the garden. Our family's debt. She brought them a wooden box. It contained old letters, photographs, and a child's drawing. The picture showed a red room with a single black window. A girl stood beside it. Above her, a child had written, *Akane*. Her name was Akane Mori. Eiko said she lived in the neighboring house more than a century ago. Her father photographed the dead and sold the pictures to grieving families after an earthquake. He began using a new camera brought from Europe. A photographic plate, Daniel asked. Eiko nodded, although she likely did not understand his words. People claim the camera preserved more than a face. It preserved a person's final thought. That is a legend, Eleanor said. Yes, Eiko agreed, but legends often begin after people agree not to tell the truth. Akane became ill during the winter of 1911. Her father, Jun Mori, locked the girl in a small room to prevent the illness from spreading. The room had one window coated in red lacquer. Jun placed a camera across from his daughter's bed. He intended to record her final moments, but when Akane died, the recording did not end. What kind of recording? Daniel asked. Home video did not exist in 1911. Eiko removed a circular metal disc perforated with tiny holes around its edge. Daniel leaned closer. It was neither a hard drive nor film. The object resembled a modified Nipkow disc, an early mechanical method of transmitting moving images. Jun Mori experimented with moving pictures. Eiko explained he combined a camera, mirrors, and a spinning disc after his daughter died. The machine continued operating for 7 days. On the 8th day, Jun disappeared. Eiko's great-grandfather purchased the workshop. Instead of destroying the equipment, he concealed it inside a wall. Why? Eleanor asked. Eiko closed her eyes. Because the recording showed the future. People paid to see enemies, unfaithful husbands, or debtors disappear. My family transferred the images onto newer media, film, magnetic tape, computer drives. They spread the curse. Eleanor said they called it a service. Daniel felt sick and the owners of the computers. Each new device had to be given to someone after the recording was opened. The room chose the owner. That person disappeared, and their final hours became the next recording. So the videos are not random home footage. Daniel said they are the final recordings of consecutive victims. Eiko nodded. Kenji found the hiding place 7 years ago. He took several drives to America and tried to destroy them, but whenever one device was broken, the recording appeared on another. Eleanor stood. Where is the original machine? Eiko looked at them with fear. Inside the room that does not exist. They found the entrance behind a cabinet in the corridor. Wooden panels concealed a low door. Beyond it was a narrow passage leading into the red wall. The air smelled of dust, metal, and old lacquer. Daniel went first with a flashlight. Eleanor carried the secure container. Eiko remained upstairs. The passage ended at a brick section. A wooden frame had been built into its center, a window without glass. Beyond it lay darkness that is impossible. Daniel whispered. The exterior wall was less than a foot thick, yet a corridor extended beyond the frame, vanishing deep into black space. Eleanor placed the container on the floor. We found a passage in 2012 too, she said, where an abandoned house in California. It could not have existed there. 4 of us entered and only you returned. No, she stared into the darkness. I did not return either. Daniel said nothing for a moment. What does that mean? Part of me remained there since then. I have seen the red window in reflections. I hear the voices of the people we lost. That is why the case disappeared from the archive. I erased it because the room found everyone who read the files. And you kept the folder because I intended to go back. For revenge, to finish what I failed to finish. A faint red light appeared inside the distant corridor, somewhere in the darkness. A child's music box began to play. Eleanor lifted the container. If the source is truly here, we destroy it today. Daniel removed a thermal camera from his bag. No, she turned toward him. No, you planned to sacrifice yourself before we arrived. Otherwise, you would not have hidden the truth, but you are no longer running this operation alone. I am the director of the archive, and I am the only person here who will not let you behave like a victim." For several seconds, Eleanor stared at him. Then, for the first time since the case began, she almost smiled. "All right, Carter, what is your plan first? We locate the mechanism. Then we determine what keeps the recording active. Only then do we break anything. Far too sensible for a horror story. That is why we might live to see the ending." They stepped through the frame, the window vanished behind them. The archive of the missing the corridor did not belong to the Watanabe house. Its walls were covered in changing layers of material. Timber became brick, brick became concrete, and concrete became metal panels. It seemed as though the passage had been built across different decades and different countries. Doors appeared every few yards. Behind the first was Kenji's apartment in Boston. A cup stood on the table. The television played without sound. Rain fell outside the window. Kenji sat on the sofa with his back to them. "Kenji," Daniel called. The man slowly turned. His face was blurred like a damaged video frame. "Do not speak to him," Eleanor said. "It is a recording." Kenji opened his mouth. Digital static emerged instead of a voice. "She already knows your names," he said. The door closed by itself. The next room was Owen Mercer's workshop, then Claire Bennett's apartment. After that came Samuel Reed's university office. Each room repeated the final moments before its owner disappeared. "This is not a location," Daniel said. "It is a storage medium. You think we are inside the recording. Not literally, but the space is organized like a file system. Each door contains a separate block of data, and the corridor. The index." Eleanor touched the wall. Black powder clung to her fingertips. "Then where is the original?" Daniel aimed his light forward. The corridor ended in a red room. A child's bed stood inside. Opposite it was a complex structure of brass gears, mirrors, wires, and blackened wood. A metal disc rotated at its center, slowly without any source of power. A girl in a pale kimono sat on the bed. Akane Mori. She did not look like a monster. She appeared 9 or 10 years old. With a thin face, dark hair, and watchful eyes. "You brought it back," she said in Japanese. Daniel understood her despite not knowing the language. Eleanor placed the container on the floor. "We came to stop the recordings." "The recordings cannot be stopped. People do not wish to forget. This is not memory," Daniel said. "It is a trap." Akane looked at him. "Archives are traps too. You preserve the voices of dead people and call it work. We do not kill people to expand the collection." For the first time, her calm expression changed. "I killed no one." "Then who did?" Akane turned toward the mechanism. A man wearing a dark kimono appeared in the mirrors. Jun Mori. He stood behind the camera, adjusted the lens, and spoke to his daughter. The reflection had no sound, but Daniel read his lips. Asterisk, "Do not be afraid. Now you will live forever." Asterisk, "Your father recorded you after your death," Daniel said, but that was not enough. "He linked the machine to your fear." Akane gripped the edge of her kimono. The walls trembled. "He promised to open the door. He did not. He will return. It has been 115 years. The doors behind them began to open. Figures emerged from the rooms. Hundreds of missing people. Some looked confused. Others repeated the same movements recorded during the final minutes of their lives. "Daniel," Eleanor said softly. She was staring at 3 people in white laboratory coats. Her former team. The young man at the front smiled. "Eleanor," he said, "you finally came back." She took one step toward him. Daniel caught her arm. "It is a recording. He knows my name. All the recordings know our names." The man held out his hand. "You left us here." Eleanor went pale. "I tried to return." "No. You erased the case to protect others, so you would not have to see us." Daniel stepped between them. "Eleanor, look at his coat." "What?" "The emblem." In 2012, the archive had used a blue logo. The man's coat displayed the modern black emblem introduced only 2 years earlier. "He is being constructed from your memories," Daniel said, "and he is getting the details wrong." The man's face stretched like an image on a damaged screen. He lunged. Eleanor did not retreat. She raised the metal container and struck the figure in the chest. It shattered into thousands of red squares. The other recordings moved toward them. "Your plan, Carter." Daniel studied the mechanism. The gears rotated without touching. The mirrors reflected different moments rather than the room around them. At the center, behind the spinning disc, was a thin glass plate. It held a portrait of Akane, not dead, alive. She sat beside the window, looking at her father. "This is not a recording of her death," Daniel said. "It is her final living image." So, the curse is not sustained by death. It is sustained by an unfinished recording. The machine keeps searching for an ending. That is why it adds new people. Every disappearance is another attempt to complete the story. Akane rose from the bed. "Do not touch the plate. You do not need this recording," Daniel said. "Without it, I will not exist. You are no longer the girl on the plate." You are the fear that has been copied for more than a century. Akane began to cry. It sounded like an ordinary child crying, not something monstrous or supernatural. That was precisely why Daniel felt his determination weaken. I do not want to disappear, she said. Neither did they. He pointed toward the corridor filled with missing people. Release them, I do not know how. Daniel looked at Eleanor. That is what we misunderstood. She is not controlling the machine. Eleanor understood first. Her father is still inside the recording. Jun Mori appeared in the mirrors again. This time, he was looking directly at them. The first recording, Jun Mori stepped out of the mirror as if crossing through a doorway, unlike the other figures. He appeared perfectly clear. Black lacquer stained his hands, and tiny cuts marked his fingers. You have no right to take my daughter. He said, you took her first. Eleanor replied. The machine accelerated. The metal disc spun so quickly that its holes became a continuous ring. Images of Daniel and Eleanor appeared across the red walls. Daniel saw himself inside the archive laboratory. He opened the box, connected the drive, watched the final 7 seconds, then disappeared. He is trying to record us, Daniel said. Eleanor removed a compact directional electromagnetic generator from her bag. Will this destroy the plate? Not the glass, but it may stop the metal disc. Then what are we waiting for? If we stop the machine at the wrong moment, it will preserve the final frame. Us, Jun Mori raised one hand. Every door in the corridor slammed shut. The missing people advanced. Daniel watched the spinning disc. Its rotation was not constant. Every 7 seconds, it slowed for a fraction of a moment. The final 7 seconds, that was when the machine copied the recording onto a new carrier. Eleanor, open the container. Are you certain? I am certain about the mechanics. The rest is probable. She opened the container and removed the hard drive. Moisture had formed on its casing. The red circle looked fresh, as though it had just been drawn. Place it beside the machine, Daniel said. It will try to complete the cycle and record us onto it, and then we give it a different ending. Jun Mori rushed toward them. Eleanor activated the generator. An electromagnetic pulse struck the brass construction. The gears shuddered, but the disc continued spinning. Not enough, she shouted. Wait, Daniel counted 5, 6. The disc slowed now. Eleanor fired a second pulse. The metal disc stopped. Every figure in the corridor froze. Jun Mori stood motionless only a few steps from Daniel, but the glass plate remained intact. The image of Akane moved within it. The girl in the photograph turned her head toward the window. The recording is still running. Eleanor whispered. Daniel understood. The machine was only a player. The true source was the plate. Akane, he said, your father promised to open the door. But you were not waiting for him. The girl watched Daniel. Then who was I waiting for? For someone to tell you that you are allowed to leave. Jun Mori moved. Be silent. Eleanor stepped in front of him. You turned love into a prison. I saved her from being forgotten. No, you forced her to relive her final day forever. Akane looked at her father. You said you would return. I am here. No, she said. You are here only because you refused to let me go. A crack appeared across the glass plate. Jun Mori screamed. The mirrors shattered. But their pieces did not fall. They remained suspended in the air, reflecting hundreds of red rooms in different countries and different homes. Daniel saw every carrier of the curse: tapes, film reels, compact discs, hard drives, servers. The red window appeared in every reflection. Break the plate, Eleanor shouted. Daniel lifted the metal disc, but Akane stood in front of him, not as the frightening figure from the video, as a child. Will it hurt? She asked. Daniel lowered his hand. I do not know. It was the only honest answer. Eleanor moved closer, but afterwards the room will be gone. Akane looked at the bed, the red walls, and the black window. And me, you will be remembered, Eleanor said, but not as a curse. The girl held out her hand to Daniel. Her fingers were cold, then finished the recording. She stepped aside. Daniel struck the glass plate with the edge of the metal disc. The first crack passed through Akane's portrait. The second blow split the plate in half. The third reduced it to fragments. The red room vanished. Daniel woke inside the passage behind the wall of the Watanabe house. Eleanor lay beside him, still holding the generator. The metal container was open. The hard drive rested inside. Its red circle was gone. Aiko and 2 police officers found them 11 minutes later. For Daniel, at least 3 hours had passed. During the following weeks, people who had disappeared years earlier began to reappear in different countries, not all of them. Some returned home, others were discovered in abandoned buildings, railway stations, or hotel rooms that appeared on no map. Most remembered almost nothing. Kenji Watanabe was found outside Matsu. He was sitting beneath a tree, holding an old photograph of Akane Mori. Owen Mercer returned to Pittsburgh. Claire Bennett was found in Seattle. Samuel Reed appeared outside the entrance to his university. Eleanor's team did not return. Why? Daniel asked one evening as they completed the final report. I think they did not disappear because of the room, she said. Jun Mori used them to create the first digital copies. Only reflections of them remained. Daniel did not try to convince her otherwise. They officially registered the investigation as Case 14. This time, Eleanor did not erase the evidence. She created a paper archive with no digital copies and placed a warning on the first page. Asterisk, the primary source has been destroyed. The recordings have lost all observed activity. Do not open surviving files without authorization from 2 senior analysts. Asterisk, 1 month later, Daniel received a package from Japan. Eiko had sent him a child's drawing discovered inside the wall after their departure. The red room was no longer there. Akane stood in a sunny garden. Beside her lay an open wooden frame resembling an ordinary window. Someone had written in English on the back. Asterisk, thank you for opening it. Asterisk, Daniel brought the picture to Eleanor. She studied it for a long time. Do you think it is really over? She asked. Daniel looked at the dark monitor. Only the 2 of them were reflected in its black screen. No red wall, no window. I am certain the original curse is gone, he said. The human habit of recording things that should never be seen is another matter. Eleanor placed the drawing inside the folder. Then I suppose we still have work to do. They switched off the lights and left the archive. Behind them were thousands of drives, tapes, and damaged computers. Every one of them remained silent. And for the first time in many years, no tapping could be heard in the underground storage level.